why and how we can position Portugal in the world through the concept of talent. The first thing I'll have to explain is a little bit about my background, so that you understand my motivations for the things I've done in the past and also the things that I aim to do in the future. And so the first thing I have to tell you is that I'm a Portuguese immigrant born in South Africa in 1972 and that came to Portugal in 1985. Well, when I was a teenager, and especially in 85, I wanted to be a movie director. But obviously in Portugal there weren't so many opportunities as movie directors. My dad asked me, do you have any other second option? I said, yes, I'd like to design cars. And that wasn't actually an option either. Then I said, well, maybe I'll be a diplomat. And we clearly didn't have the family network for that either. So what I did was I took up a joker degree like any other kid at the time, and I took up economics, which was quite practical because you can always play that degree in any type of field you go into. But in fact, that was practically one of my biggest frustrations. I'll come back to another one. And I explain this because practically what it did for me was it gave me a very unhappy corporate career. I started out in banking, which wasn't that much fun. And then by chance, I found my vocation. So I went into the human resource industry, which I thought was pretty crazy at the time. But the mix there was that I was asked to do a specific mission, and that was to set up a company. So I understood at that point that I really had to make myself the million-dollar question, which is, what is it that I want to do with my life? So I dwelled on this idea a little bit. Actually, I went with my wife to Bali to clear out my ideas, and what happened was that I woke up to my capabilities and my competencies at that time, and I said, I'm going to take control. The thing that came after was entrepreneurship, which is pretty much something like this, and I decided to focus on the talent industry. At that time, I was pretty sour with what was going on in the talent industry because everybody was telling me that recruitment was in fact the talent industry. However, I had a different perspective about this idea, and I said, well, actually, this is not true. Because, you see, the value in the talent industry has to clearly be on the talent side. And the recruitment industry clearly gives much more weight to companies. So this has to, in practice, be wrong. I went into further thought, and I said, well, actually, all recruitment companies say that they're worth their price basically because talent is scarce. So not everybody has it. I didn't feel the same way either. I said, well, I don't think this is true. I think this is jargon. I think this is a good commercial script, but it's not really true. I think everybody has talent. So in fact, the industry of recruitment exists because there is not a perfect dynamic between the match of offer and demand of people. And that basically boils down to schools not giving us the idea of our vocations, and basically Taylor helped us out organize pretty controlled environments at work, but not the best ones, not the harmonious ones, and certainly not the most happy ones. So I said, this is something we have to look into. I started thinking about careers, and I came to a conclusion. I said, well, if you come to think of it, my grandfather didn't have a career, so why do we give so much importance to career? This is actually something quite new. This is a three-generation problem at most. And when I looked at what people really want when they come to a recruitment firm, they want to zap their career. They're not happy, so they come to you and they say, oh, what's the market like? I say, well, the market's the market. What do you mean? They say, well, I want something different. And you ask them, well, what do you want? They say, I don't know. What do you have? I said, that's not the best way to be happy. And people actually ignore the question. They say, I just want a job. This is pretty much the most important question we have to solve in society today. Because when you look at the amount of depression, it is pretty alarming. And we've just found out that even in the largest crisis of the world, where unemployment has topped any other figure before, we're focusing on people that are miserable, not people that need money. People are miserable. Even in the richest societies, we find it. So I said, well, clearly this is not what we pretended, but this is clearly our trend. And I started going further into this and saying, well, do you really think that money brings happiness? Or in fact, is it the other way around? Is it that the parable of the talents actually inverts this idea that maybe money is a certain type of barometer to how coherent and how consistent you are in pursuing your vocation. And I actually, once again, chose the second option. I thought, well, if I determine to use my talents, I think that money will come my way. But I'm sure that if I pursue money alone, I will not be happy. So I actually designed a process where I said it's actually quite simple. You know, you have to know yourself better in order to make better choices and start choosing what you really want instead of what you don't want. And based on that, if you put yourself into a function, a mission, a corporate environment, if you have a meeting in your life, the probability of recognition, which is the closest thing you can get as to love from a company, that'll work out great for you. So you'll be corporately happy. And basically we dwelled on this model and we just thought of it even profoundly. We said, you know, actually companies can no longer be triangular. These are military sources that actually live off the idea of obedience and control. Whereas the world as we live in today is actually quite the opposite. What we want is the flow to come from the bottom to the top of the leader, not actually the leader having an idea and seeing how fast he can get his order accomplished. So, in fact, the real reason why companies should go into happiness is because individual happiness, aggregated, actually translates into corporate productivity. It's just not simple, okay? You have to blend these people. And I went further and I thought, how many examples do we have of people who had a career but a different talent? And I came up with Fernando Pessoa, is probably one of the best writers in the world, one of the largest poets, and he was an accountant. So you can imagine how frustrating it would be for him today to look for an ad in the newspaper and have to continue doing accounting. And when I thought of it, you know, my kids started asking me, Dad, why don't you spend more time at home? I said, well, Daddy's looking for talent. And they'd say, what's that? And I said, well, it's like, you know, these special powers that you have, like you can be creative or analytical, you know, they're called competencies. And they would say, oh, I got it. It's like the Pokemons, right? I'd say, that's exactly it. It's like the Pokemons. People, regardless of shape, height, age, actually do have special powers. So what you have to do with it is you have to ask other people who can observe you to reference you and be used as people that can vouch for what you really have inside of you, regardless of what you've been doing before. Anything that can be taught, can be changed. Your talents should not be changed. I don't think they can be changed. So when we came down to it, we said, well, talent has a particular type of characteristics which are quite cool. Well, first, it doesn't choose an age. Beethoven composed at 8. And actually, it doesn't age either, because Einstein didn't get stupid either. So, you know, we have to look at this and try to find a definition. Then I encountered this brilliant thinker called Kjell Nordstrom, and his definition of talent is know how, know who, and can do, which is very, very, very real. Why? Because the paradigm of talent is no longer individual. It's collective. Today, know who is very important in your talents. It's an amplifier to what you can do. It's no longer an individual concept. So what we did with that was, obviously, we raised a quite successful company, and at a certain point we thought, I started reading some MIT Sloan School of Management articles about corporate strategy and some philanthropy and how the world would change into making its core business, serving its communities. And we said, well, if we can find a common denominator, if we believe that everybody has talent, then we could put this to our use and try to make our company international by traveling around the world, meeting the Portuguese individuals in each community, trying to make them embrace each other, and actually help us find the best opportunities to internationalize. The other way to look at it was quite easy. It would be, well, we can't stop globalization, and we're sure that even the people that are abroad, they're not most talented, they're not more talented than the people here, but they are actually more prepared to embrace a global world. So in the future, I'm sure that they will be in demand. And actually, there is no liquidity between the international market for Portuguese talent and the domestic market for Portuguese talent. So what we did was, we're going to do this trip. We called it the Star Trekking Initiative. And basically, we went around the world. We went to 5 cities in 5 months. We tried to bring speakers from 3 different generations to sort out our issues and basically identify global Portuguese talent, stimulate networking, which is quite hard for Latin people, and to try to create value by developing Portugal's brand with a certain intent. And I'll come back to that later. Basically, it was about collaboration. We didn't have money to go all over the world. So we launched this blog where we would have a certain type of content like good news about Portugal, so people abroad could always be updated about what they could say to foreigners every time someone said, "What? You're Portuguese?" It's like this crazy thing. It's like saying, "I didn't know that blonde ladies could be intelligent." You never know what to say. You just can't get angry. You have to find something to say. So we did that. We put up some surveys. We asked people to give their opinions about how they felt about the experience of being abroad. Basically, we tried to interact these two realities, the global and the domestic reality. This was quite a success. We did 30,000 kilometers, 5 cities in 5 months, as I said, 20 speakers, 50,000 visitors, 1,800 participants at the events that we would set up in each city. We'd go to the best hotel in town, we'd pay the bill, and we'd bring everybody along and try to sort out these things and try to show them the value of uniting as a community. We fabricated 165 articles, and basically this got noticed. So our president said, "This is a good initiative. Carry on." And that's what we did. In New York, someone said, "Well, how can you do this if you don't come back to Portugal and try to ignite the people there about what you've been doing abroad? Because they're the ones who really have to look and understand to our potential abroad." And I said, "Okay, that's okay, but we don't have any more money." And this was the first time that we said, maybe we can do something. It was an enormous error because one day at a party, a friend of mine said, "Well, listen, what can it cost? Why don't you ask people to fund that?" And that's exactly what happened. We got 1,100 people to chip in €5, a little bit more sometimes, and companies to sponsor. We put up an event for 1,100 people in 14 days that basically showed the marvel of talent all around the world. We were trying to show the Portuguese people that they can have enough autoesteem to embrace the world in that respect. So basically I got crazy and I said we'd put up a social network. Leonardo was here and Telma was also here. And in a fortnight, with a lot of unspoiled sleep, we put up a social network called the Star Tracker, which basically showed that 30,000 talents aged between 25 and 40 live in 132 countries, which makes it pretty unique as a diaspora because we don't live in communities. The Portuguese people like to live alone, they like to integrate, they like to be diplomats, they're very curious. So in fact what they do when they go abroad is they get a lot of foreign friends, but they don't live in Chinatown and they don't live in Little Italy. So if the whole world were actually just one city, the power of the diaspora would mean that we have one Portuguese citizen in each building. And through the theory of network, that's an enormous power if we can get it to collaborate. But obviously we would have to bring them something new. And we would never forget the common denominator. So we said what we have to do for the Portuguese people to have a leading edge is to try to educate them. Instead of asking each other where they're from or what soccer club they like, because this is something that will always separate them, what we have to do is we have to let them understand what their talents are. So if they connect to people who can actually choose the adjectives that can describe them better, they can be recruited for their talent instead of their experience. And that's where we took this and we said, okay, maybe we can do something more. At the 31st of July, the President attended this major event that I told you. He made me promise that this would never die. And I said yes. And I said I'd do it until the end of the year. So that was crazy. But anyway, what we started thinking was if we have to make this everybody's, it will have to be a little bit about Portugal as well. And we started looking at the world and we said, everybody in Portugal wants Portugal to strive. And the world is really changing. So when you look at it, you have to understand that each country has a brand. And Portugal, if it were on a global brand map, wouldn't have a unique brand. It would have maybe Benfica, maybe Cristiano Ronaldo, and we learned from that. We understood the difference between developing a territory and developing our people. Just like the Jewish have Israel and the Jewish people, and there is no global brand I can imagine or identify in Israel, I do know companies made by Jews. So what we did was to try to find a way to ignite people and make them understand that even if we don't have global brands yet, we can do this through our community. Because these talented individuals that work abroad, they are in fact our best ambassadors. So we decided to donate the social network and make it our platform for work, also make it profitable so it can fund the initiatives that we're going to endeavor into and make people who have a lot of talent successful. and recognize that that will be great for Portugal. So what it will do is identify, train, plan, coach, promote, and finance Portugal's global talent. Take note that I didn't say Portuguese global talent, I said Portugal's global talent. This means that these are individuals who are Portuguese nationality and other nationalities that will love to radicate in Portugal. And so I've decided to blend the initiative of social networking, the common denominator of talent, and a few concepts like Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers book, which is brilliant, to actually make a community strive. I'm visiting 16 cities in the next 3 months and asking for ideas so that the community itself can grant that the foundation will live. I have no money. We don't need money. We need money to make people work for these ideas. We need each person to be an ambassador for his country and to chip in with ideas and basically finance the whole operation. We don't need a big endowment. We just need people to use credit cards, and every time they use it, they'll be chipping in a little bit to the foundation and make a little bit of their time to find talent which is not discovered. People who are not successful yet, and what they really need is career planning, coaching, connecting, promoting, not finance. They just need to manage information better. So, yes, it's hard, but I'm sure we can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I know a little about this initiative more from the media and this wonderful presentation.
Yeah.
So I think from what I understood, you created the momentum, you create the link, the network is in place. You're now capturing ideas, and what will be the next step after that?
Well, in December we intend to present the concept of the foundation and organize yet another initiative, another event where we can actually demonstrate the people we've met throughout the world and have, well, obviously the common citizen finance this type of initiative as well as corporate companies. So when we've collected all these ideas, we will come back to public and say, this is how it will work exactly. So now my travel is actually to find ambassadors in each city so that besides the virtual network, you have a physical network. You have someone in place in each city that will energize the community to make it feel their own initiative. And these guys will be like headhunters finding Portuguese talents in those communities. And they'll bring them all up to the top of the foundation where curators and scientific council will look at their potential, but also the ability and the probability that they can actually make it through success. It's much harder to endure success than to actually have potential. That's it.
Just one more question.
I also have one. Do you think you can have a Portuguese lobby outside Portugal? I wouldn't say as strong as the Jewish lobby, but at least strong enough to...
Well, why not? As long as we decide it, yeah. You know, the English have the Commonwealth, we have the CPLP, we're the most, I've heard we're the most spoken language in the Southern Hemisphere. We have a lot of things, we just have to collaborate. People just have to trust one concept and say, okay, this guy's not about getting rich on this. You know, he really is just like the martyr who's taking everything else. But everybody has to chip in. Not say, oh, that's great, we need guys like you and I'll see you Monday morning. Everybody has to chip in a little bit. And then we can do anything we want. That's what I believe, anyway.
So are you planning to invite Barroso to join?
Well, actually, he invited himself last time, as did the president. So I hope to deserve his presence, if that's what you're asking, yes. As well as other large curators in the world. I don't think this should be domestic. You know, I don't think Portuguese people will accept that they're very good in the world if other people don't accept it as well. So the foundation has to be global. It will have to have other curators, other very important people around the world who will join as well. But Barroso did go to the 31 of July, so I do think he'll come back. Let's hope so. Thank you.